62-game regular season is underway. Some interesting words recently from the commissioner's office that came across my radar, and I wanted to talk to you about what was said. If you didn't hear what was said, possibly not. Let me give you the thumbnail recap. Rob Manfred, a mortal enemy of this show, Rob Manfred recently said that the analytical movement in baseball was not worth the damage that it has caused the sport of baseball. So tell me more, right? I'll tell you more. This comes from behind the paywall at The Athletic. And among the quotes from Rob Manfred, he said, once everybody's doing it, that little margin that maybe you're getting, I am sure that whatever that margin was at one point in time, whatever it is today, it sure as heck is not worth the damage that was done to the game over a period of time. The first money quote. That comment came after Manfred told the story of an unnamed MLB owner who spent a week with the analytical department of his team trying to figure out what exactly they do, and essentially disregarded all of the analytical work, saying it's not worth the trouble. And the money quote on that, the commissioner said, well, I got a lot of smart guys down there, the owner said, but I am absolutely convinced that analytics is an arms race to nowhere. Close quote. He said, Manfred, that came from the owner who spent a week following the nerds around in the analytical community. So there's a lot to unpack on this one. Let's discuss the question. The commissioner of baseball, Rob Manfred, saying that the analytics revolution in baseball was sure as heck not worth the damage it did to the sport. Is that a thumbs up or thumbs down? So this is 2 thumbs up. I've got Silver Carp Literature and Walt Disney. And we will combine all of these things together, and we're going to make some overpriced popcorn, beer, nachos, and a pretzel, which is what you get if you go out to the ballpark. So, number one. The nerds are in a lather over these comments, which is great. This is a rare and appropriate win for Rob Manfred. We have taken plenty of pot shots at Bozo the Clown, the commissioner, but on this one, we are right there with him. Good job by the commissioner. We are man enough to admit that. For the geeks who are ripping Manfred as a boomer and mocking him for essentially saying that information is bad, you are on the wrong side of history. Now, you have to strike a balance. This is the thing we've been talking about for years when it comes to the analytics, which has been around baseball for 20 years. Everything in moderation, including moderation. You don't want to depend too much or too little on anything. Certainly not the numbers. You don't want to indulge in overindulging in this analytical world. Analytics has become to baseball what the silver Asian carp, the silver carp, has been to the Mississippi River. It's an invasive species that has been destructive to the native habitat, right? Those silver carp, I've loved watching those videos on YouTube that escaped in the mighty Mississippi River. And what happened? They began to push out the native fish species in the Mississippi River, outbreeding them and eating their resources and all that. And the silver carp are known. Those are the ones that leap out of the water when they hear the sound of the engine on the Mississippi, and they'll leap out of the water. It's an amazing video. They fly everywhere. It's nuts. But analytics has done similar things to baseball. It has. It's taken the human element out of the game for so many different teams in baseball. I don't know of any team in baseball today that allows the human element in there more than every once in a while. And even then, I question whether that happens. And they've been replaced, the manager, with the middle manager, the 3-ring binder, and the big data, whatever way you want to say it. And it's almighty, all-powerful, all-encompassing analytics. They tell you what to do. You got to follow the printout. Got to follow the printout. Now, page number 2. All right, how did this happen? How did analytics overtake Major League Baseball like fungus? So it happened 20 years ago. The power of literature is how I will describe what has happened to baseball. The power of literature. Moneyball, The Art of Winning an Unfair Game. That was originally published in 2003 by a guy named Michael Lewis. And it was the story. He followed Billy Beane around, the GM of the A's. I think most people know that, overcoming a nickel and dime budget in Oakland. And how did they do that? They used an analytical, evidence-based, sabermetric approach. The book, which is now become more than just a book, it's turned baseball upside down for 20 years. It was such a hit, they made a movie in 2011 with Brad Pitt about Moneyball, and almost a generation later here. Generation's 25 to 30 years, so we're not quite at a full generation, but the game has been fundamentally changed. The very premise of the book was that baseball strategy was outdated, that it was archaic, it was subjective, it was flawed. That's why the book was such a popular thing. So, well, this is the new way to look at baseball. And they argued in Moneyball that the A's front office was able to outsmart the richer teams because the other teams were using this antiquated approach to baseball. That's a whole backstory on that. And so what ended up happening is that every owner and executive that do not have their finger in the pie when it comes to building a roster and that part of a team, the owners now, they all read the book. It became the Bible of baseball. And so some 20 years later here, you have had an army of MLB teams that are just carbon copies of every other MLB team. When in doubt, the default answer is analytics. You go with the analytics. That's the way you do it. All right, final point. So what can be done to get away from the analytical approach and this nonsense in baseball? So this is often something that is tossed around in debate among those of us that care about this kind of nonsense. And it has opened up Pandora's box for a great debate. Now, Rob Manfred has gone with the Johnson & Johnson approach, which means eliminating the shift, the pitch clock. These are temporary solutions to the underlying condition. If you hate these changes, if you don't like the pitch clock, if you're the old get off my lawn guy and you don't like the pitch clock, you can point directly at analytics. To answer the question, though, what can be done to get away from analytics, which are everywhere? Well, you need someone who thinks outside the box. A Major League Baseball team needs to be run by somebody who's a Walt Disney-like figure. What I mean by that is an Imagineer, someone who imagines a world without the analytics, or at least, I don't want to say without the analytics, but with that being not the central driving force. And mix together a recipe where you have some new and some old ingredients. Sooner or later, everything old is new again. And if it works, you then get a bunch of copycats. And so a little of this, a little of that, like choking up on the bat with 2 strikes, hitting the ball where they ain't, a small ball, hitting behind runners, developing starting pitchers. This is a big one. Developing starters that are not wusses, that are not the type of flower, the pussy willow flower, that if they go deep in games, it's like they need an ambulance out there to take them off the mound because their arm's going to fall off their body because they go into the 7th or the 8th inning. Developing starting pitchers with a mindset where they're expected to go deeper in the games, thus eliminating the dependence on multiple relief pitchers when on any given day, all you need is one relief pitcher to have a reversal of fortune, and then you're done. And not panicking over the 3rd time through the lineup. Trusting your gut. Have a hunch, bet a bunch. And if everyone in baseball is doing one thing, you want to go away from where the populace is in anything. Like if you're in college and you're studying to go out in the real world, you want to find a void in the marketplace. There's no void in the analytical marketplace. Every team is a carbon copy of the others. They all hire some hotshot Ivy League type executive who has a super computer program that can figure everything out, and they're gonna find talent where there's no one else looking, which is of course not true because everyone's using the same basic outline, and that's how that goes. So knock it off.